Van Hipp is with us.
Thank you.
Van, you know a lot about North Korea. You've often supplied us with very original information about what's going on there. What do you make of this ending of the summit by President Trump?
Well, I think it's a decision, Stuart, that was made in the last, I would say, 24 hours. About a day or so ago, I did talk with senior administration officials, and they felt at that time it would still go on. What it tells me is that Kim Jong-un pulled one stunt too many. This president is holding the cards. He knows it. That's the message he sent today. But I do like his letter. I like the tone of it. I think he struck the right tone because it does hold out promise for the future if Kim Jong-un gets his act together.
What do you think comes next?
Well, I think we'll see how Kim Jong-un responds. I think this president realizes that his first and foremost responsibility is as commander-in-chief, keeping the American people safe, and he's not going to be played. And I think that what the letter also does is the president of the United States seizes what I call the PR narrative on the international stage. I believe, we can go back to doing, he hadn't even begun to see what maximum pressure is. This president is holding the cards. I would pretty soon launch a big-time informational warfare campaign against him. He's got some problems in his country. We can help exacerbate that situation.
Would you just hold on for a second, Van? I just want to explain to our viewers that Secretary of State Mike Pompeo appeared before a Senate panel. He read the statement, the letter, which our president has sent to the North Koreans. He read that letter, and then, because Senator Corker is running that Senate panel, he thanked Mike Pompeo for the letter and then said he now wants to talk about the State Department budget, which they are now doing. If there's any headlines coming from that, we'll bring them to you promptly. Back to Van Hipp. We had Gordon Chang on the phone a moment ago. He suggested that the next step would possibly be a blockade by our Navy of North Korean ports to stop stuff going into North Korea physically. That would see, if that happens, that would seem to me to be an escalation, a military escalation. What say you?
Oh, I like that idea. And, some of the sanctions that have worked have been when China has played ball. China's been playing some games lately. Don't forget, they last Friday, Stuart, landed a new bomber, nuclear-capable bomber on one of the islands in the South China Sea. So they've been playing games, and the president noted in his remarks when President Moon was at the White House day before yesterday, the president noted the change in attitude after the second time he visited the Chinese. So, look, I think Kim Jong-un and the Chinese were negotiating, but they forgot who they were negotiating with, the best negotiator we've ever had. And this president is holding the cards. But, again, I like the tone of the letter. He's still holding out promise for the future.
Would you agree with the following? China tried to play President Trump, and President Trump said, we're not playing ball.
That's right.
Okay.
And he's holding the cards. He's holding, I think, the cards on trade, and he's holding the cards militarily. He knows it.
Tell me more about the landing of this Chinese, is it a bomber that they landed on that little atoll in the South Pacific? The plane was capable of delivering nuclear weapons? Did that happen?
Yep. Yeah, that was last Friday. So they have continued to play games again and again. And this president is not going to be played. Look, if they want to play that, don't forget, it's time for us, and this president is beginning to do that. We saw that, I think, Vietnam. I mean, who would have thought the United States would be having a military ship, an aircraft carrier, go into a port in Vietnam? We've seen that now. So the president, I think, is doing the right things. He's reaching out to old foes who now have a common interest in the South China Sea. 5.3 trillion tons of cargo goes through there a year. It's vital to the economy of the free world. The president gets that. Well, you look at what's going on, though, Stuart, with South China Sea, North Korea, this today, it really is an international chess game. And it's what I've been saying for a long time. It's the most complicated foreign policy situation a U.S. president has ever faced.